for millennial men, Gen Z men, and Gen Alpha, it's just not a good idea these days to follow the so called rules of society. I'm not saying you should break the law, but I do think there's a better alternative instead of trying to do things the quote unquote right way. Look, I did everything I was supposed to do. I got a college degree in an in demand field. I spent countless hours in the gym perfecting my physique, and I did put myself out there. I've done all the things that society says you're supposed to do if you want to thrive in this world. And I did have some brief periods of success. I had a decent job for a little bit. But overall, all the classic advice, everything that all the adults told me I needed to do my entire life growing up, I did that. I followed that advice. I played by the rules. And now I'm a 37-year-old man living in a spare room in my mom's house, and I have literally never slept with a woman, not even once in my entire life. So the chances of me ever getting married and passing on my genes to the next generation, it's almost definitely not going to be happening. And I know I'm not alone in this. I used to think my failure to launch, so to speak, was just solely because of my own issues. I'm not very good looking. I don't have the best social skills. But the older I get and the more I pay attention to other men's experiences, the more I'm starting to realize this isn't just a me problem. A lot of men are having a pretty similar experience to what I've been living. And it's not just uneducated men that are struggling. It's not just ugly men that are struggling. I've seen plenty of guys online that look like they're probably above average in looks that still can't find a single girl to go out with them. And I've heard of plenty of guys just like myself who are well educated. They got the degrees, they got the credentials, but they just can't find work. So they end up doing DoorDash or maybe working in a warehouse or something, working some low-paying retail job, when 30 years ago, a man with those same credentials would easily find a high-paying corporate job straight out of college. So obviously, there must be some major systemic issues with this society that are holding men back. Because I'm not seeing the same struggles from a lot of women. I do think it's hard out here these days, economically speaking, for everybody, including women, relative to how it was for past generations. But for the most part, as far as I can tell, if a woman gets an in-demand college degree, she will probably be able to find a job. But it's not that easy for men. And obviously, women don't have a lot of trouble with dating. But the older I get, it's just becoming more and more clear to me that if you want to succeed these days as a man, you need to just ignore all the classic guidelines you were told to follow, because that's the old rules. That stuff just does not apply anymore. It might have worked for your parents, and it might have worked for your grandparents, but it's not working for most of us. For example, all your life growing up, what did everyone tell you you needed to do in order to have financial success? I know I remember all my teachers and my parents always saying, make good grades and go to college. Make good grades and go to college, and you'll be all right. So that's what I did. I went to college, and I graduated magna cum laude with an engineering degree. And I actually did land a job from that, but that was honestly just pure luck. I've told this story before, but basically, I met my future supervisor at a career fair. They actually hired somebody else. They didn't even offer me an interview, but the person they hired never showed up for work. And I had just coincidentally emailed my future supervisor like 1 week before that to ask about openings. And I'm guessing everyone else they had originally interviewed had already got hired elsewhere. So at that point, they called me in for an interview and I got hired. I'm pretty sure they were just desperate to hire someone at that point because they had a lot of work to get done at the time and they really needed some help. So that's how I got my job. I'm pretty sure it was just a stroke of luck because I applied to a lot of jobs and I was pretty much just getting ghosted left and right. And before you say anything about my resume was not bad. I had an internship on there. I had relevant projects and I had a 3.7 GPA. So I don't think my resume was the problem. But I actually quit that job right before the big event that happened in 2020, the big worldwide event. And I think I would have been laid off if I hadn't quit because a lot of people did get laid off. And I already kind of felt like I was on the chopping block. So I guess the classic advice did kind of work for me for a few years. Barely, but sure, technically it was working for me. But that was the last job I ever had, other than a brief stint at a car wash. And that was years ago. It was still the 2010s when I was working there. And it's not for lack of trying that I haven't been able to find work since then. I've tried very hard to find a job since then. I even went back to school and got a master's degree, but no luck. And even when I did have that decent job, I still didn't have any success with women. True, I'm not a good-looking guy, but I had a good job, and I was in really good shape back then. I was well-groomed. I dressed relatively well. I just never could get a woman to go out with me. But let's back up a little bit. This isn't just about me, because I really don't think my experience is all that unique. In fact, I hear stories just like mine every time I get on any kind of social media. And I see y'all posting your own stories in the comments. It's just crystal clear at this point. This is the new normal. Actually having success is what's rare, especially for the younger generations. I'm a millennial and I'm feeling it too, but a lot of people my age are already set in their careers and they're going to be fine. But for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, I don't think I would even recommend going to college at this point. Now, don't anybody go dropping out just because I'm saying this. You should always hear out different people's opinions before you make any big decisions. But in my heart of hearts, I just cannot recommend college to young men these days. Even if it does help you land a job, which is increasingly unlikely these days, you're just setting yourself up for a lifetime of slavery. Here's the thing. I wholeheartedly believe that for an average man to find true happiness in this world, education is essential. But by education, what I mean is actually acquiring knowledge, actually learning valuable skills. That's what I mean by education. So that's why I think getting a college degree is a waste of time for most men these days, because you're probably not going to be learning anything valuable there. I have a master's degree in computer science from one of the top-ranked universities in the world, and I can tell you with confidence, I have learned more and improved my coding skills more through my own personal projects than anything I did through the course of my degree. And again, this was at a highly ranked university. I know coding does naturally lend itself more toward self-study than a lot of other fields, but honestly, I think with most things, you're better off just learning through practice. If you have a passion for being a doctor and you've just always known your entire life that you want to be a doctor, then okay, go to college. You can't become a licensed physician without a degree. But for most of us, college really is just a waste of time, and it's a massive waste of money. The only good reason to go to college, outside of becoming a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, the only reason to go to college is to have access to all of the young single women. But for most of us these days, that's irrelevant anyways. They only want the top 10% of the best-looking guys. So if that's not you, then that's not a good reason to be paying $50,000 or however much it costs these days And that's not a good reason to be wasting 4 to 5 years of the prime of your life for a degree. Okay, so getting an actual education, as in actually acquiring valuable knowledge and actually learning valuable skills, that is essential. And college is probably not the path forward if you want an actual education. Maybe it can be in certain cases, but not usually. So what am I getting at here? What do I recommend that men do instead of going the traditional route of going to college and then working a 9 to 5, etc.? Okay, my recommendation, which you should not take as gospel, by the way, this is just my opinion, but my recommendation is figure out how to make enough money for yourself without working a regular job. Don't even try to be employed. Okay, employment is a trap. And when I say employment is a trap, I mean being employed by someone else is a trap. That is not what you want. There's a lot of ways to make money without working a 9 to 5. There's a lot of ways to make money online. Obviously, it's not easy to make a living without a 9 to 5, but you know what? It's not easy these days to make a living with a 9 to 5. It's getting harder and harder every day to even get hired at a regular job. And wages have been stagnant for a while. So it's like that 4 to 5 years you would have spent focusing on getting a degree. Why not use that time instead focusing on trying to grow on YouTube or trying to get really good at producing music and building up your own business teaching music production, for example. It could be anything. If you have good social skills, you could even try doing something in person, like power washing people's driveways or something. Anything you're building for yourself is probably time better spent than pursuing a degree. It might sound risky, but is it really? I don't see how it's any more risky than getting a degree. This isn't the 80s or the 90s anymore. A college degree does not guarantee shit. Even STEM degrees, engineering degrees. A degree doesn't guarantee you a job. Plus, you're already going to be a year or more worth of salary in the hole from your student loan debt. So tell me, how is that any less risky than spending 4 years working on your own business? It's a new world, fellas. This ain't your granddad's economy. Corporate jobs don't offer a whole lot of job security. Corporate jobs do not offer much stability. And entry-level jobs hardly even exist anymore at this point. You're better off trying to figure out how to make it your own way. Or just be a NEET. Might as well. It beats working 40 hours a week just to barely make enough to afford rent. Especially if it still doesn't help you attract women. Obviously, not everyone has the option to live the NEET life, but if you do, then hey, no shame in that as far as I'm concerned. But I know most of you probably do actually have to make money somehow if you don't want to be homeless. So do what you want, but I'm just not seeing how college is a good deal these days. In fact, I think it's a bad deal. I think it's kind of a scam. I was in college for, I think, 8 years altogether, 7 or 8 years, something like that. I wasn't full-time every semester, especially early on. I was working basically full-time at the Burger Slop Factory, and I would just take 2 or 3 classes each semester, so that's why it took me so long. And by the way, I'm saying 7 to 8 years for my bachelor's and master's degree combined. But imagine if I had spent all that time focusing on YouTube, which is what I actually have a passion for. It's what I actually want to do. It's the one thing that I actually enjoy doing. I have a few years under my belt now across a few different channels, and I'm still not making anything close to an actual living, but I do have some freedom. I don't have to request time off. I don't have to wake up at 6 in the morning every day and sit in traffic for a half hour just to go be miserable around a bunch of NPCs talking about, we'll circle back and touch base on that next Thursday. I just don't have the bandwidth right now. All that bullshit corporate lingo. My lifestyle currently as a YouTube NEET is a lot better than the lifestyle I was living back when I had a corporate job. And maybe I'm wrong, but I have a feeling if I had put that same youthful drive that I put into getting my degrees, if I had put all that effort into trying to make it on YouTube for 7 or 8 years back when I was still young and full of hope, I think I might actually be making a decent living by now. Maybe not. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe where I'm at now is just my peak. This might be the best I could ever do. But I think I could be doing something for myself, especially if I had gotten into it back then when I was first starting college, like 2011 or something like that. So I cannot recommend following the standard path that this society tries to force us down. I actually think that the standard path is probably riskier these days compared to just trying to figure out how to make money for yourself. Even if that means just doing gig apps part-time. Obviously, you won't be making a lot of money doing Uber Eats or whatever, but at least you can work on your own time. You can work on your own schedule. I honestly think not being forced to wake up at 6 a.m. every morning, 5 days a week, that's probably worth at least $30,000. Easily. So it's worth making less money anyways. And you're going to be making poverty wages at most regular 9-to-5 jobs anyways these days. So to me, it seems like doing your own thing is the obvious choice. I know that by not following the rules and pursuing the standard traditional path, I know that makes me look like a loser to most people. I don't make a lot of money. Women think I'm a bum, etc. Okay? I am a loser. Fine. But women thought I was a bum when I made $70,000 a year. That's about $90,000 adjusted for inflation, by the way. But I was a loser when I made that much money. So what's the difference? If I'm not getting any anyways, then what's the difference? How is following the societally approved path any better than doing what I'm doing now? At least this way I have a chance at success. The sky's the limit with self-employment. I'm not saying I'm going to be the next Mr. Beast, but if I could even get to the point where I'm making twice as much as what I make now through YouTube, then I would feel pretty good about that. And I don't think that's super unrealistic. I'm not going back to being a wage cuck. I cannot subject myself to that torture anymore. I just couldn't do it. I've been away from that lifestyle for long enough now that it's like, I'm not jumping back into the pit of snakes after I already climbed out. I don't care if it's hell up here. It's worse down there, okay? I know that. So, yeah, be a NEET. Be a loser. Drop out of college. Do it. Delude yourself into thinking that you're gonna be a rich and famous YouTuber or a rapper or whatever the heck you want to do. Or, you know what? Be a rug dealer. Okay? Rug dealers are cool. Women love rug dealers. If you are a man and you're not one of the top 10% of men that women actually find physically attractive, then be a fucking criminal. That's going to give you a better chance at finding love than being an accountant, easily. And you still get to do tedious math either way. Really, it's not even that much different. Even ethically speaking. Sure, as a rug dealer, you're going to be aiding and abetting people's addictions. You're going to be contributing to the downfall of society. Sure, yeah, that's all true. But being an accountant in corporate America is just as bad, ethically speaking. How is helping a large corporation get away with tax fraud any better than selling rugs? I don't really see a big difference, other than the fact that women might actually be attracted to you if you do the latter, and they'll just think you're a beta bucks oofy doofy dweeb if you do the former. But seriously, I don't actually think you should go into off-label pharmaceutical sales. I just don't think it's actually that evil compared to lots of regular jobs. But I do recommend trying to make money online instead of going to college and grinding out LEET code or whatever and wasting hours upon hours of the prime of your life working on useless busy work assignments and submitting your resume 1,000 times through automated AI systems that are just going to automatically reject you anyways as soon as you click submit. I don't think that's a good use of your time. So, dare to dream, brothers. This society does not reward doing things the right way. So you might as well do things your way. If you got anything out of this, please check out some of my other videos. You can also find some secret videos that you can watch for free on my Patreon. No sign up required. So check that out if it interests you. And as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.